Today is Monday. You guys know what time it is. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday Mail Day. I got some great questions. Again, it's actually been a minute since I did the Monday Mail Day. It's just been real busy. We're back on track. And if I don't get to your question, please don't feel a type of way. I had somebody that got mad and said they're unsubscribing and I wasted their time because I didn't answer their question. Again, I go through them. I pick what I feel is great questions for the group, and I can't get to every question. Otherwise, this will fuck around and be a 4-hour video. So please save your questions for the following week, and I'll try to get to them. Stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get into the questions. Question comes from Mike Hawk. Assuming Floyd and Pacquiao fight this May, what would you like in the undercard, and what's next for boxing after this big-ass hype fight? Good question. The one match that really comes to mind that's realistic, and by realistic, what I mean is the guys aren't booked up and occupied. And this is the problem with May. A lot of the guys are tied up. Danny Garcia is fighting Lamont Peterson. Robert Guerrero's fighting Keith Thurman. You got Sean Porter fighting. You got Adrian Broner and John Molina. So a lot of the guys are going to be tied up to the point where they're fighting in March or April, and there's no way they can fight. Like, you can't have Broner versus Molina and then have him ready by May. That's not really realistic to get out of one fight and have another fight that close. So I would say a fight like Yadamo Rigondeaux versus Leo Santa Cruz. I know this might be a little bit complicated because Oscar De La Hoya, he sold his contract over to Al Heyman exclusively. So I don't know how feasible that is, but that's a match that I would like to see. There's some other guys. Nicholas Walters makes entertaining fights, so possibly a guy like Nicholas Walters versus a Lomachenko. That's a top-ranked guy, so I don't know if they can make that fight. But even if they can't make that, I'm sure they could do like a Nicholas Walters, Johnny Gonzalez. It'll have to be something like that. I don't think we can get two megastars because a lot of the big stars, like the B-level stars who are popular but not as popular as like Cotto, Mayweather, Canelo, and Pacquiao, a lot of those guys are tied up. So there's a couple matches. And then the other thing is, not everyone wants to be an undercard person. Like, I can't picture Canelo fighting on a Mayweather undercard. He said he will never fight on a Mayweather undercard. So those are a couple matches that I would like to see that are realistic. And you said, what's next for boxing after this big-ass hype fight? Closure. Just get it over with. Let the world see who would win. Have a conclusion. And there's a lot of great up-and-coming guys and talent. So hopefully boxing is alive and well because we finally got the fight that we've been waiting for 5, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it's been. And we can continue and kind of celebrate some of the guys who are coming up through the ranks and that kind of thing. So that's what I hope for boxing after. Next question is from Miguel. And he says, do you think with all the nonsense going on in boxing today that a governing body like the NBA, NFL, and MLB might serve them well? Yes, I do. I think, it can't get any worse. Right now, boxing is the closest to anarchy out of all the major sports, if you really think about it. NBA, NFL, it's actually gotten so strict in a lot of those sports to the point where you can't even do certain things. Look at Marshawn Lynch. Shout out to Oakland. Look at Marshawn Lynch of the Seahawks with the football. And he did an interview recently, and he said, you guys know I'm here. I'm here so I don't get fined. Like, you'll get a fine for not showing up. Yet in boxing, you have motherfuckers who take PEDs and steroids, get banned for 8 months, a year, and come right the fuck back, and they're back fighting to this day. You had Margarito with loaded wraps and plaster wraps on his hand, and he was able to fight Pacquiao after that point. You know what I'm saying? So boxing is corrupt. It's been this way. There's a lot of politics. I think a governing body would aid and assist and eliminate, but I think there's money in the corruption. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they want to fix it. I don't think it's not that they don't have the wherewithal or the intelligence to know that a sanctioning body, like a governing body, to police them better would help them. I think they don't ultimately want to make the change. That's why boxing remains corrupt, and you get like bullshit scorecards or judges, like, you know what I mean, like Levi Martinez. And I met the dude, but Levi Martinez, the 117 to 111 was retarded. That was an egregious scorecard. Yet he was just at the fight. You know what I'm saying? So he just gave a bad scorecard to Canelo Laura, and I was at the fight with them for Brandon Rios versus Mike Alvarado. So he's still getting hired. He's still getting big fights. There was no punishment or anything like that. So, you know what I mean? Boxing is going to remain corrupt as far as I'm concerned. Next question. Should Ward move up and fight Kovalev since Triple G doesn't want any part of him? I don't see anyone at 168 but Darrell, and I don't think he could beat Ward, and that comes from one. So, Ward, another one of my Bay Area brothers. I think, yeah, move to 175 is not a bad idea. I still think there are a few fights left, a very select handful of fights that I would want to see him in at 168. Other than that, he's pretty much cleaned out the division. A Chavez Jr. fight, nah, it's not too bad. I would watch it just because you got the Chavez Jr. name. Chavez has a chin. He rehydrates to a lot. You got fights that I really want to see at 168 would be Anthony or Andre Dirrell, one of the Dirrell brothers, James DeGaulle, you know what I mean? Especially if he gets maybe like one or two more impressive wins. I would entertain a Carl Froch rematch. Andre Ward fought that fight with a messed up hand. Since then, Carl Froch had avenged his loss to Kessler. He knocked out George Groves twice. One was questionable. So he was on, you know what I mean? He improved, I guess you could say. He did better. He bounced back from the Andre Ward loss. So I would watch a Carl Froch rematch. Like I said, James DeGaulle, a new guy. Those are probably really the only fights that I would want to see. Or if they did like maybe a James DeGaulle versus George Groves rematch, and then winner gets Andre Ward, something like that. But if it's not going to be one of those guys that I just mentioned at 168, I definitely think he should move up, fight to Artur Beterbiev, fight to Adonis Stevenson, Sergey Kovalev, one of the killers up there at 175, because, again, he's not getting any younger. His career was on hiatus up until the Rock Nation deal, dealing with legal processes, and before that, injuries. So he needs to get the ball rolling. He's a gold medalist. He's an Olympian. And, again, he's not getting any younger. So you pretty much clean house, fight those remainder of people who had made a name in the sport and in the division since the Super 6 tournament. And if it's not going to be one of those, move up. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion. But I do think there's some fights at 168, and I just mentioned those. Next question is from Black Chang. Random question. Why is the Cruiserweight division the least liked, most slept on division in the sport, at least in America? Vander Holyfield, David Haye, and Steve Cunningham all started as Cruiserweights and later moved up to be respectable heavyweights. What do you think the division needs or is lacking in order to spark the interest of the American public? Appreciate your opinion, and thanks for bringing up-to-date content. Wow, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think the Cruiserweight division's biggest problem, it lacks star power. There's no one that's really buzzing in the Cruiserweight division. Like you mentioned, Evander Holyfield, he had a buzz behind him. He had an amateur background. He looked good in his Cruiserweight fight. Same thing with David Haye. He was buzzing in the UK. He was getting stoppages and things like that. There's not really a Cruiserweight that I'm aware of, like, who's top 10. Probably the biggest name at Cruiserweight is Marco Huck, somebody like that. But a lot of those guys aren't American. They're from Poland, Russia, Germany, Africa, wherever. And they're not household names. They're not, like, I know some of you guys try to twist my words. I don't give a fuck where you're from. I'm just saying they don't have a big household name in America. You know what I'm saying? So that star power is lacking. And not even just in America, those people aren't big enough. Like, there's no one at Cruiserweight that I'm aware of that's current that's like Canelo. Canelo's from Mexico, yet he has crossover success. He has a big following in Mexico, or at least a generous following in Mexico, but there's a lot of Americans that are familiar. My dad knows who Canelo is. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of Americans who know about Canelo too. So there's not really a person in the Cruiserweight division that I know of right now that's actively fighting who has that type of crossover success, either being American or having a huge following in their native country of Russia or Germany or whatever. No one's really buzzing like that. So I think that's the biggest hindrance for the Cruiserweight division. And to get it back on track, you just need somebody to come through there that is like a Triple G, who's getting people to want to watch him, to buy tickets, the Mexican style, building a fan base slowly but surely. You need that. And there's no one really there. And then the other thing that I want to mention is the heavyweight division up until recently has also been pretty dormant, in my opinion. So right now you got Klitschko versus Jennings. You got Deontay Wilder, Stavern just happened. You got Mir Mansour. You got Tyson Fury. You got some names who are generating some interest now. Anthony Joshua is another person. But for a while, after Lennox Lewis retired, it was really just the Klitschko's. And a lot of people thought they were fighting okay competition. You know what I mean? Tony Thompson's and not world beaters, not like the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and shit. So even looking up cruiserweight division and then looking up to the heavyweight division was pretty dormant too up until recently. So I think that's why the heavyweight division and as well as the cruiserweight especially wasn't getting any shine or really getting much love, is because you don't have those stars. You don't have a star power. That's my answer. Next question is from the Super Mario 69. Besides Miguel Cotto, who else would you like to see Canelo fight this year? I mean, honestly, Cotto is the main guy I want to see him fight. Another fight that I would like just as much, if not more, I would say just about the same, and that's Triple G. I mean, why not? Canelo, to my knowledge, he has trouble making 154. He's fighting at catch weights of a 155. I think the natural progression for him is to move up. You know what I mean? And his body's growing. He's young. When you're young, your body has more flexibility. You're more pliable. But as you get a little bit older, sometimes those things change and you become more dense. So I think his natural move is to 160. So I would love a fight with Triple G. That would probably be next on my list, if no Cotto. I think Triple G, he's building his name. I mean, he got a lot of people saying the Mexican style and good boy. And he's known as a big puncher. We'll see what he does against Martin Murray. I think Gennady Golovkin needs to have an opponent like that. As good as he is, we haven't seen him fight a person like Canelo. Canelo has some dog in him. Canelo is a man's man type. Like, I don't care what anyone says. People get it twisted because of the red hair. But I think Canelo is a true fighter. You know what I'm saying? He shows heart even in his losses, like the Mayweather loss, or in my opinion, he lost to Laura. But he turned it up. You know what I mean? And the Laura fight was very close. The Mayweather, you can't really argue that unless you're C.J. Ross. But yeah, I think Canelo, like if Canelo were to fight Triple G right now, I would say Canelo is probably the best opponent, in the best shape, in more of the prime of his career than really anyone else that Triple G has faced. Gabe Rosado got stopped by Angulo, and it was his first fight at 160 when he fought Triple G. Curtis Stevens hadn't really fought anybody the caliber of Triple G before he stepped up. He was beating guys like Saul Roman, who's been stopped before, stuff like that. So that's the fight I would want to see, if no Cotto. See Triple G versus Canelo. If it's not that, I want to see him fight one of the young lions, the technicians, the Demetrius Andrades, Charlo brother, something like that would be good. And I don't know if you're considering Kirkland, but I want to see the Kirkland fight too, which is pretty much done. Next question is Sandra Rue, and it says, who was the fighter that converted you into a hardcore boxing fan? Now, that's a tough question. I can't narrow it down to just one person because there wasn't one who cultivated me into boxing and really got me going. But I could think of a few that came to mind. Mike Tyson is a huge one. Even the crazy interviews, stuff like that, this man was entertaining. Like, you never knew what he was going to say. He had a violent temper. He was a loose cannon. And in the ring, he came with bad intentions. He was destructive. He was like a rhino or bulldozer or some shit. And I don't see how you can't really like him as a boxing fan. So early on, definitely Mike Tyson was one of those people. He just came to knock your head off. He had the video game. I always thought that was cool because he had his own game, Mike Tyson Punch-Out. I used to play that on Nintendo. Mike Tyson's definitely one of the people. Another one would be, growing up, I was a huge, and still am, huge Prince Nassim Hamed fan or whatever. Prince Nassim to me was that dude. He made it cool to watch boxing. It was like must see TV, from his elaborate ring entrances to just dancing and showboating and kind of like horsing around in the middle of the match. Plus, he had freakish speed and he was a good fighter. So Prince Nassim Ahmed was just one of those guys that he kind of, even if you didn't like him, I'm sure you watched him. Not everyone has that fucking power. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people, like, I can't really think of anybody. Like, I don't know. I'm not trying to clown anybody in this video, but like, let's say a Richard Brill, like, he's cool, but his style is not the greatest. There's nothing really, like, you know what I mean? It's not the greatest. So if you're not a fan of Richard Brill, you probably don't watch him. But Nassim, there was something different. He had that charisma where even if you weren't a fan of his, you'll probably still watch because it was an entertaining, good fight, and you want to see him lose or whatever. Kind of how Mayweather is. You have to watch regardless if you're rooting for him or rooting against him. That's the type of energy to me that he had. And then the other person would be Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones is just that dude to me. Again, kind of similar to Prince Nassim, a showman. He had the crazy freak of nature type speed. He would play around. He would toy. He was very confident in his skill. And it was just, he made for an entertaining show. It was like the complete package. Like, if you go to a movie, you want to see an introduction. You want to see the character development. You want to see some, like a problem. You want to see a climax. You want to see a solution, an ending. You know what I mean? That's what Roy Jones gave me as a boxing fan. He gave me that full, complete package when I watched his fights. Whether it was an early night or a late night, it was entertaining. His post fights were fun, different things like that. So I would say those are three good fighters that really had me going and really made me into a hardcore boxing fan where I was like, man, there's no turning back. This is my shit. I really love boxing. Next question is from Boxing Fan. Since the Garcia versus Peterson fight is at a catchweight, do you think it's only fair that the loser gets stripped of their titles before? Because if Peterson loses, this will be a second time that he will lose to another 140-pounder and still get to keep his title. And Garcia had an optional defense against Herrera and lost, and had a catchweight with Salka. So, yeah, I think Peterson versus Danny Garcia is a good fight just in terms of styles and what they bring to the table. They both have heart. Danny Garcia has more power. I would say Peterson has a better defense. So it's an interesting stylistic fight. I think the catchweight should never have been the case. I think the catchweight, no matter how you slice it, who you like, I think that's some bullshit. I don't really agree with the catchweight. For exactly what you said, there's no reason that Peterson should be able to keep remaining a champion if he's losing to other champions. You know what I'm saying? You lost to Lucas Matisse. There's no disputing. It was no controversy. Lucas Matisse didn't test positive, so it was a no contest. He knocked you out in 3 rounds. You lost. But the only reason you kept your title is because they rigged it and made that fight at a catchweight. That's not fair. That's not practical. There was no reason for a catchweight. They both can make 140 because after they both fought at 140, Lucas Matisse fought Danny Garcia at 140. So it's not like one was struggling and couldn't make the weight or some shit. And if you can't make the weight, shit, move up. So I agree with you. I think they should get stripped because what's the point of sportsmanship and being the best if you're not, there's nothing at stake. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole competitiveness. I mean, even on a boxing channel, if I'm on YouTube and there's other people on YouTube, I want to say I have the best content. I have the best fans. I get the most views. I get the best engagement. I get the best response. That's being me. I'm a competitive person. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at this fight, to say that win, lose, or draw, I get to keep my title, that's bullshit. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, especially when they both fight at that weight. If Peterson was coming down from 54 or 147 to meet Danny Garcia for an opportunity, that's something different. But they both fight at the division, so yeah, fuck it, strip them like a stripper. You know what I mean? Like, That's what I think. I just don't think it should be happening at catchweight. This question is pissing me off the more I think about it. But yeah, I also think I agree with you. I think Herrera beat Danny Garcia, so he wouldn't have been a champion to begin with. And then the Salka fight was just a pity. Like that was a horrible, horrible job matchmaking. And that really wraps it up for Monday Mail Days. I try to get to as many questions as I could, keep it respectable length of time. If I didn't get to your question, just leave it next week. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.